Oh, good evening, everybody. Ooh, someone's in a nice place. Do you guys hear me? Everybody hears me good?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes,
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 we do.
yes.
Very
Mhm.
good. Welcome.
Yes, we hear you. Erev Tov, Erev Tov.
Erev Tov. Luba, why didn't you
Yes,
tell me
sir.
where you're going?
Pardon me? What do you say?
You end up going. Oh,
It's
just
a
a
background. It
it's
was last couple months ago.
got it. It's just
Yeah,
a
my last trip to Mexico.
got it. Got it. Welcome.
Thank you. Mhm.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Oh wow, the Kohen Gadol is here. Elias, the Kohen Gadol is here. Everybody is here, and we are ready to start. So we are continuing today's class. Is a special class which I'm going to first of all I'm going to mute you for now, and then we're going to open up later for some questions. But if you don't hear me, go like this, so then I know that I'm not speaking to the crowd. Okay. So tonight is the third class that we began since Pesach, which we are discussing important things which relates to the very soon imminent coming of Mashiach, the building of the temple, very speedily in our days, amen. And we are discussing this idea from an halachic perspective. The first week we shared all kinds of interesting laws which reflects the idea of anticipating and awaiting the coming of Mashiach. The last week we spoke about which blessings would we recite, God willing, when we are going to meet Mashiach and the time of the Geula, the time of the redemption, the Shechianu, and the special blessings that you say and you recite when you meet a king, a teacher, a scholar, a redeemer, and as it was discussed in details last week. This week, we are going to discuss yet another very fascinating concept, which God willing is going to be a practical question. And it goes as follows. In this week, today, we are on the 9th of the month of Iyar. Tomorrow, Monday is the 10th, Tuesday is the 11th, Wednesday is the 12th, Wednesday is the 13th, the 13th. Again, today is the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. The 14th of Iyar is going to take place this coming Friday. The 14th of Iyar marks a very special day on the Jewish calendar, as is referred as Pesach Shenei, the second Pesach. And in very short, before we're going to go back to the background and the story of the second Pesach, the idea of Pesach Sheni, the idea of the second Pesach, is very clear, and these an opportunity for people who did not have a chance to have a first Pesach. And here the Torah gives them the opportunity to do a second Pesach. The question is, if Mashiach comes tonight, tomorrow, Tuesday, everybody here on this class did not have a chance to do the first Pesach, right? We were all here in Gullus. We were not in Jerusalem. We did not have the temple. And the question is, since Mashiach is coming this week, is it possible that by Friday, this coming Friday, we are going to celebrate another Pesach? Question, yes or no? Tell me, Rabbi, are we going to have a second Pesach if Mashiach comes this week? This is the question that we are going to discuss tonight. But before we are going to discuss this question and coming to a practical response, I want to first discuss a little bit the second Pesach so we know what is the basis for the question and how can we tap into it to try to resolve it and to find an answer for this question. So first of all, let's go to the story of the story of the Pesach, the way it took place. The way Pesach took place, it was the first year. Now we're talking the year after the Exodus. The first historical Pesach was celebrated in Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt, the night before we left Egypt. This is when we celebrated Pesach the first time with a Seder, as the Torah commands Moshe, God commands Moshe, while being in Egypt, to prepare a lamb, to roast it, and to prepare matzah and maror and bitter herbs. And
Тебе закрыть мне наушники, у меня есть наушники.
I'm sorry, and that should be eaten during the Seder in Egypt. Now came the second Pesach. The second Pesach, exactly a year later, they are in the desert. They're in the desert. And the Torah tells us, and if you want to look it up, I'm going to give you the reference and you can look it up either now or later, that the Torah says that in the book of Bamidbar, in the book of Numbers, chapter 7, so the Torah says that Hashem spoke to Moshe, Vayidaber Hashem and Moshe, in the desert at Mount Sinai, in the desert of Sinai. Bashono Hasheni is the second year, Letzeitam Eretz Mitzrayim. And Hashem says, Veyasu bnei Israel et ha-Pesach b'moado, that the children of Israel shall make the Passover lamb in its appointed time. What is the appointed time? Says the Torah, be'arba'os yom b'chodesh hazeh bein arbaim. On the 14th, in the afternoon of the 14th day of this month, in the month of Nisan, they should have a Pesach prepared in the desert. Get a hold of a lamb and prepare a proper Pesach. Moshe is giving the instruction to the Jewish people. Comes the Torah and tells us that lo and behold, there were a group of men who were ritually impure due to the contact with a dead person. And in the Talmud, there is a discussion exactly which dead person were they in contact with. Some opinion sees that they were the ones responsible for carrying Joseph's casket, since Joseph was carried out of Egypt to be taken to Israel as he asked to be buried in Israel. Some say that this man is actually Mishael and Elzaphan, which were responsible of pulling out Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's two sons, from the Holy of Holiest, not holiness, Arnold, from the Holy of Holiest to be taken out from when their life was taken in on the famous tragic day, which was a joyful day, the 8th day after the dedication of the Mishkan, which we actually discussed last Wednesday night's class. So since they carried out a dead body, so they became ritually unclean. So either way, whoever the people were, they are now in a state of impurity. So you have to remember, the Torah makes it very clear that a person who is tamei, who is contaminated, cannot eat from the Korban Pesach. It has to be eaten. There are conditions. You have to be ritually clean. You have to be circumcised. And there are other conditions which allows you to take part in the Korban Pesach. This group of people we're not what's it called? We're not able to be there. We're not able to do it. So now they came to Moses, and the Torah says as follows. They came to Moses, and they say that we cannot do it. And therefore, they said the following words. Anachnu tmeim lenefesh adam. We are ritually impure due to the contact with a dead person. Lama nigara lebilti akriv et korban Hashem b'moado. Why should we be the losers? Nigara, why should we be losers? Why are we prevented from offerings that special offering that sacrifice on its appointed time together with the rest of the community, betoch bnei Israel? So it's interesting, this is the first time that the people are not waiting for a commandment, they're actually begging for a respond, wanting to be a part of Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach, as explained in the commentaries, is not just yet another service. Korban Pesach represents the celebration of the birth of Bnei Israel. We became a nation on Pesach. The Korban Pesach is an offering which celebrates and emphasizes the beginning, how we came out from the land of Egypt by divine providence, a korban which celebrates the divine providence of God, the fact that God dominates nature, miracles. This is a korban which really carries in him a lot of tremendous value, a lot of qualities that you don't want to miss out of being a part of such a celebration, of such a special offering called the Korban Pesach. This is like if you miss Korban Pesach, it's like you're missing one of the greatest opportunities, to the point that there are among the 248 commandments that we have in the Torah, the positive commandments, there are only 2 commandments which the Torah says that by not doing them, the consequences are the more severe, known as the punishment of karet, premature death. What are the only 2 commandments, positive commandments, which carries that severe punishment? Circumcision is number 1, and not offering a Korban Pesach is number 2. That's it. Any other commandment, not putting on tefillin, not sounding the shofar, which is obviously are all important and all equally important, but violating them does not carry that stringency of these 2, circumcision and Korban Pesach. And again, like I said before, because Korban Pesach is not just another Korban. Korban Pesach, in the celebration of Pesach, is something which associates you with the people of Israel. It expresses your membership in the community of Israel, just like Brit Milah, circumcision, emphasizes and brings out your belonging and your covenant with the Jewish people. So too is Korban Pesach. So therefore, we can understand why it was so important for those group of people not to miss the opportunity, but rather to be a part of this special korban. So they came to Moshe. When they come to Moshe, what does Moshe say? He doesn't tell them, sorry, get away. There's no, you missed. No. Vayomer aleh Moshe says, imdu ve'eshme'a ma yetzav Hashem lochem. Wait, and I will hear what God instructs concerning you. I'm going to speak to God. Let's find out. Maybe there is instruction. And he comes back with the amazing news, a beautiful message. And the message is that Hashem told me to tell you that any person who became unclean from contact with the dead, or even if he's far away, meaning he's far away from the place where the korban has to be offered, as we're going to discuss in a few minutes, either among you or future generations. This is not only God saying something for that year. Ledorotechem, for all future generations and the generations to come. This is what God says, that what? Ve'osa Pesach Lashem, he should make a Pesach when? B'chodesh hasheni, be'arba'a asar yom ben ha'arbaim, ya'asu oto al matzot u'merorim yochlu. It should be made on the second month, which is this month. The month of Iyar is the second month from Nisan, on the 14th day in the afternoon. And that should be done as all the laws of the original Pesach. This is what we call Pesach Shenei. This is the beautiful opportunity which the Torah offers for people, and we're going to see soon what type of people have a chance to celebrate a second Pesach. And from then on, throughout the history, as long as there was a temple, there was always a celebration in Israel, in the temple, designated specifically for those who did not have a chance the first Pesach to come back again and to do it the second Pesach. Historically, we find in the Tanakh a actual celebration of a second Pesach on a large scale is in the book of Divrei Hayamim, the book of Chronicles, chapter 30. You can look it up, chapter 29 and 30 is a beautiful discussion of a king Chizkiyahu, who he was a very special king. He was actually meant to be Mashiach in his days, and unfortunately, something involved there, which he lost his candidacy for Mashiach, but he was very similar to King David in many, many ways. And in the book of Divrei Hayamim, chapter 30, you can read for yourself a beautiful description of an amazing Pesach, which took place in Jerusalem, but it wasn't the original Pesach. It was actually the second Pesach of the second month, because on the first Pesach, for some reason, the community was entirely in contamination. They were all ritually unclean, the Kohanim and the priests and the vessels, and there was no way that they could have arranged to have a proper Pesach. So then when it was all reorganized, Chizkiyahu sent out letters and messengers came out from the royal palace all over Jehudah in Israel to invite everybody to come, make sure to celebrate Pesach Shenei, the second Pesach, which was taking place. And as I said, all the details is in that book of Tanakh, the book of Divrei Hayamim. Which, by the way, in Tanakh, we have a few Pesach celebrations. We obviously have, like I said, the one in Egypt. We have the one in the first year in the desert. Then, for some reason, throughout the other 38 years in the desert, they did not do Pesach, and there's all discussion of why. There were some issues deal with the Pesach. But in the book of Joshua is a story of the first Pesach they celebrated once they entered Eretz Israel. That was the first holiday which they actually did coming into Eretz Israel, is discussed in the book of Yeshua. And also we have from other sources that it was the last holiday which was celebrated in the temple was also actually the holiday of Pesach. So God willing, the first holiday that we're going to have with the building of this future temple should also be Pesach. So what is the discussion? Now that we see the importance of Pesach, and we see that the Pesach was actually given this chance, this opportunity of a second Pesach. So the question is, how are we going to have a second Pesach now, being that we couldn't do the first Pesach? So to go into the discussion, I have to share with you a few important halachot, rules regarding who is qualified to do a second Pesach. And then we're going to see if it fits in to our situation now. Matter of fact, there is a tractate of Talmud which is called Psachim. Psachim is the tractate of Talmud which deals with the holiday of Pesach. So then you're going to wonder, so why is it called Psachim? Psachim means Pesachs in the plural, but Pesach is only one. And what's the obvious answer? That the reason the name and the title of that tractate is Psachim is because I see the kamikars are pointing towards their Talmudic edition, right? It's called Psachim. So the reason it's called Psachim in the plural is because there are two Pesachs. So in that tractate of Psachim, the 9th chapter, it's a tractate which has 10 chapters. The 9th chapter of that tractate of Talmud begins with the Mishnah, which discusses the laws of the second Pesach. Most of the discussion of Psachim is regarding the original Pesach, but there is a 9th chapter in the Talmud which is specifically designated for the subject of Pesach Shenei, the second Pesach. Pesach Shenei, as far as the observance of Pesach, that was very much similar to the first Pesach, meaning that the lamb had to be roasted, and that you had to have matzah, and that you have to have moror, and the manishtana, and the gefilte fish, obviously, and other goodies which we all eat on Pesach, and obviously also the applesauce, Arnold, which comes after the matzah, right? You remember that part? This is very important, which the compote, especially Pesach compote, which makes it easy to digest all the Pesach food. So there was a whole Pesach celebration, but there was a few exceptions. First of all, the second Pesach, you didn't have to do for 7 days. It was a 1-day holiday, not a 7-day holiday. Number two, the second Pesach, you actually had no obligation to get rid of your chametz. Obviously, when you ate the Pesach, you didn't eat it together with matzah and bread and some other schmears. No, when you ate the actual korban Pesach with this matzah, you ate it as we always eat on Pesach, separated from chametz. But you could have chametz in your house. You could have even have chametz on the table. There is no restrictions on chametz when it comes the second Pesach. But other than that, all the great details of the laws which discuss how the Pesach should be celebrated and how it should be observed is all actually very much similar to the first Pesach. So what is the Talmud mainly discussing? The Talmud mainly discusses who is qualified to do a Korban Pesach. Not only who is qualified, the question goes even stronger. Who is obligated to make a second Pesach? You see, it's a matter of obligation. Are you obligated to do a second Pesach? So the Gemara says as follows, and this is also the way it's ruled in the Rambam. Maimonides, as we spoke many times, Maimonides qualified the entire Talmud into law. So Maimonides also designated a chapter, actually a number of chapters, to the laws of the second Pesach, and this starts in chapter 5 of Ilchot Korban Pesach. So this is the rule is, anyone who was ritually unclean means that you came, for example, in contact with a dead body. Either you carried a dead body, you touched a dead body, you were in the same room, under the same roof with a dead body, you are becoming, which the Torah calls Tmei Met. You're becoming contaminated by coming in contact with a dead person. And there is other types of tumor. There's all kinds of discharges which can cause a man or a woman to carry the status of tameh. So if you were in a state of tumor when the Korban Pesach is slaughtered, which means when? The 14th day of the month of Nisan, or you were in a far away place. And far away place means, according to Halacha and the Talmud, a place that if you're going to start walking midday on the eve of Pesach, the 14th of Nisan, which is the time when you can start slaughtering and preparing for slaughtering in the Korban Pesach. So if you're going to start walking from your house to Jerusalem, you're not going to make it by the time of the evening. That's called being far from able to offer the Korban Pesach. Or there was another situation which, for example, let's say you forgot that it's Erev Pesach. How can somebody be so sumished that he doesn't remember that it's Erev Pesach? Don't ask me, but it's a possibility. Somebody never forgot that it's Erev Pesach. It's called shogeg, not by any intention. It just happened to be it skipped his mind. Or, for example, someone was in a state that we call honest. I want to give you a classic example. Somebody asked me actually today. He heard I'm speaking about the second Pesach, so he thought that he doesn't know the whole background, that the second Pesach mainly refers to the sacrifice of the Korban Pesach. He thought that the second Pesach is a substitute, or it comes to contemplate, to repair for anyone who did not have a first Pesach, even when there is no temple. So you heard I'm speaking about the second Pesach. This guy calls me up. He says, Rabbi, I'm not going to be at your class, but I have a question. Somebody was in the hospital because of Corona. They were on a ventilator. They did not observe Pesach. But in Baruch Hashem, they came out of the hospital now. Are they going to have to eat matzah and maror and say manishtano this coming Friday? Is that what you're going to discuss? So I told them, actually, it's a very nice question, but no. The second Pesach, which we are discussing, is when there is a Korban Pesach required, which means the time when we have a temple and the Pesach has to be observed in a very particular way, but it doesn't apply to somebody who did not eat matzah when he was forced to eat Pesach at his original time. Anybody who did not eat matzah the first Pesach, he's lost his opportunity. It's like every other mitzvah. Once, if you don't do it, it's over. You missed out. It's gone. Here we are talking in a case that somebody was in the hospital on the first Pesach when there is a temple, and therefore he did not offer the second Pesach. Says the Rambam, in such a case, he has to bring a second Pesach. He must bring himself to bring the second Pesach. And if you're not going to bring the second Pesach, then you might violate, if you do it intentionally, you are violating the same prohibition which is considered for somebody who did not do the first Pesach. Like we said before, not to do a Pesach when you can do it is a violation which carries the consequence of karet. So it's a very, very important mitzvah to be a part of Korban Pesach. So a person, for whatever reason, did not do it, but then he has a chance, and Torah wants you to come and do it the second Pesach. And when it comes to the second Pesach, it's becoming kind of lazy. I have no kayach. I'm not going to go. I didn't do it the first one, the original one. I'm not going for supplementary Pesachs. The answer is it's not a supplementary Pesach. This is your holiday called the second Pesach is not becoming just a repair for the first one, and therefore you look at it as something secondary. This is a main course of the mitzvah of Pesach, that when you did not do the first, you do the second. So you really have to do the second Pesach if you didn't do the first. And this is what the mitzvah of Pesach is being given. To the point, even if somebody intentionally came Erev Pesach, and the family said, okay, we're going to the temple to offer the Korban Pesach. So he tells his wife, I am not doing it. Or she tells her husband, I'm not interested. Or the child says, no, enough with this religious meshugas, whatever it is, I'm not doing it. Okay, you don't do it. They tried to get him to do it, but at some point you gotta make it to Jerusalem. There's no time to fight with with everybody and convince everybody to go into the car to make it to Jerusalem to the temple to get a Korban Pesach. That very person has the opportunity, but at the same time the responsibility to offer a second Pesach, to make the second Pesach. This is the way the halacha is regarding the requirement to do a second Pesach. If somebody was in a case where he was he was contaminated, if somebody was, for example, he was close to Jerusalem, and for some reason there he couldn't make it, then it's over. He doesn't have to make himself. He tried. He was there. He was almost there. And somehow he got stuck, then he doesn't have to make a second Pesach. But other than that, if you were far enough and you did not begin your trip and for some reason, or you were contaminated for some reason, you have the responsibility and at the same time the obligation to make a second Pesach. This is number one. Point number two, and this is very interesting. When the Torah introduces this concept of making a second Pesach, the Torah talks to a few people, a few individuals who were historically, that we gave the background, right? We talked about specific people who were personally, ritually unclean because they were involved in touching a dead body, right? That was the story. Therefore, the Talmud tells us, and the Rambam rules it in halacha, that this requirement to make a second Pesach only applies if an individual was in a state of impurity during the first Pesach. So he gets pushed off at the second. But what happens if for some reason the majority of the people who are coming to do Pesach are all in a state of impurity? Either the entire congregation or the majority of the congregation. And there's only a few which are actually ritually clean. You know what we do then? The Torah tells us, then we do Pesach at the first month while being in a state of impurity. You don't get pushed off. You can do Pesach together with the clean, so to speak, people, those who are tahor, ritually clean. The few of them are joining the majority which are not clean. We're not separating them into groups, and everybody does Pesach together. So a congregation does not get pushed off to the second Pesach. Being that this is the case, being that this is the halacha, what will come out? That since all of us on the first Pesach were all in a state of impurity, 3 weeks ago, none of us was able to go right away off of the Pesach. Some of us visited a hospital. We were on the same roof with a dead person. Some of us were at funerals in the last 80, 90, 40, 50 years of our lives. So any time that we were in contact with any of these situations, we are considered all ritually unclean. So the majority of the Jewish community is ritually unclean. In such a case, we should have done the first Pesach, if possible, right? We would have, if there would have been a temple, we would have never get postponed for the second Pesach. We would have done the first one. And being that we did not do the first one, let it be because there was no temple, but we didn't do the first one. But a congregation, with the entire congregation in a state of impurity, does not get pushed over to the second. So seemingly, if Mashiach comes now, we wouldn't have a second Pesach, because we are all on the first Pesach. We were never required to do, we were never able to do Pesach. This is, in one end, the argument why we should not do a second Pesach, even if Mashiach comes this week, because a community of Israel, when the entire community is in a state of impurity, does not get pushed off to the second Pesach. But others argue, and they say that this doesn't apply in our case. When do we say that a community does not do a second Pesach if they are all in a state of impurity? If they had the ability to do the first Pesach. So we say, since you can do it the first, you don't get pushed up to the second. If you didn't do it the first, there's no second for you. Our situation is that we couldn't have done the first Pesach. So since we couldn't have done the first Pesach altogether, so then maybe we would be obligated to make a second Pesach if Mashiach comes this week. What is the answer to this question? So there is many commentaries who share, first of all, there is an opinion which is not recorded in the Babylonian Talmud, but there's an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, which is recorded in the Jerusalem Talmud. Matter of fact, in the Jerusalem Talmud, there is a discussion, what happens if the temple was built between the first and second Pesach? One guy says no second Pesach, Rabbi Yehuda says yes second Pesach. But we don't know what is the ruling in that matter. But we have to know that there is such an opinion in the name of Rabbi Yehuda in the Jerusalem Talmud, which does consider our situation, meaning we did not offer the first Pesach because there was no temple, although the fact that we were anyway in a state of impurity, but technically there was no way to do it because there was no temple to do it. There is an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that in such a case, we do the second Pesach. This is also supported by the story I mentioned you earlier. In the time of Chizkiyahu Melech Amelech, Chizkiyahu the king, the whole community was in a state of impurity on the first Pesach, and yet for whatever reason, they only did that when the second Pesach. So you see that sometimes you do have this potential of having an entire community doing a second Pesach, not only individuals. But can we support it? Can we prove it from somehow? So here I'm going to share with you something which is being shared by some opinions, and the Rebbe was also going with this approach. There's an interesting discussion in the Talmud, and it's qualified in the Rambam. The Talmud, in that chapter 9 in Pesachim that I referred you earlier, which discusses the second Pesach, so goes in all kinds of scenarios regarding the second Pesach. And one of the Talmudic questions is, what happens? A child, which on the first Pesach, it was before his bar mitzvah. If you before your bar mitzvah, you don't have to do a first Pesach. His bar mitzvah was between the first Pesach and the second Pesach. Does he do a second Pesach? Do we say, since the second Pesach seemingly only repairs the first Pesach, so since he was not obligated in the first Pesach, therefore there is no second Pesach for him, because he was never obligated in the get-go, so he doesn't use that repair aspect? Or do we say, no, now comes the second Pesach, and he's an adult, he didn't do the first, let him at least do the second? This is that question in the Talmud. And the Talmud goes on and says the question applies to the next scenario. What is the next scenario? Somebody who converted to Judaism between the first and second Pesach. So the first Pesach, he was not Jewish. So being that he was not Jewish, he obviously did not offer a Korban Pesach. Not only didn't, he wasn't allowed to be a part of a Korban Pesach. But now he converted after Pesach. Oh, Shalom Aleichem. He went through the process, and the Baruch Hashem, the rabbis gave him the time, and he became a Jew. He went to the mikveh. He took upon himself all the mitzvahs. He circumcised himself. Or the woman went to the mikveh and took upon herself all the mitzvahs. Now there's a new member in the Jewish community. A week after the conversion, the second Pesach arrives. The same question, says the Talmud. Do we say that since the second Pesach is only to complete or to repair for the one who didn't do the first Pesach, and he had to do the first Pesach. So since that convert never had to do a first Pesach, or that child never had to do, that bar mitzvah boy never had an obligation at the first Pesach, therefore there is no Pesach Sheni for them? Or do we say no? Since now Pesach arrived, the second Pesach arrived, and they are now candidates for all the commandment, so let them at least do the second Pesach. This is a Talmudic discussion. And the Talmud obviously debates it back and forth, and it comes up with a very clear ruling. And I'm going to read you the ruling the way it's recorded by the Rambam. Maimonides chapter 5, halacha 7. Says the Rambam, Ger shenitgayer ben Pesach Rishon le Pesach Sheni. One who converted between the first Pesach to the second Pesach. Vechen katan shehigdil ben shnei Pesachim. A minor who became an adult, became bar mitzvah between the first Pesach and the second Pesach. Chayavim la'asot Pesach Sheni. They are obligated to make the second Pesach. Pesach Sheni is not only repairing for those who had a chance the first one, but it's also a Yom Tov on its own. And since now you became a candidate for the mitzvot, you have the obligation to do the second Pesach. This is what the Rambam rules. So if you mention this halacha, what comes out very clear. So us, the entire Jewish congregation, who did not do the first Pesach because there was no temple, let it be also because we were in a state of impurity, but mainly because there was no temple. So in regard to the first Pesach, we all carry the same concept of minors before bar mitzvah, or lahavdil Gentiles before conversion. We just didn't have a chance to do the first Pesach. It never applied to us. In such a case, now that the temple is giving the opportunity the second Pesach because Mashiach has arrived, and we are somehow going to be able to go through quickly the process of purification. Therefore, we should be able to offer the second Pesach this coming Friday. This comes out the halacha, based on this halacha from a convert and a child. And actually, this is what some commentaries are learning. And the Rebbe also learned that this way, the way we explained it. The Rebbe even went further, and the Rebbe explained that the whole discussion in the Gemara is only about postponing an individual or a community from the first Pesach to the second. But in a case that we were never postponed it because there was no temple, that we had even a chance to do it, so we were never removed from the first to the second, but it was because there was no real first. Even the Babylonian Talmud will agree in such a case that we are going to do a second Pesach. We are going to do a second Pesach. And this leads us to a story, a very nice story into the Agada, which I read many times in different variations, but it's all the same idea. One of the rituals during the Pesach Seder is the Hillel's sandwich, right? Koirach. We take matzah and we take morar and we eat it together. And what do we say before we eat it? That so did Hillel do in the times when the temple stood in Jerusalem. What did Hillel do? Hillel took Pesach, matzah, morar, and joined them together, and he ate them. And what do we say? Why did he do it? Because the verse talks about Pesach. The verse says, Al matzot umerorim yochluhu, that this Pesach should be eaten on matzah with morar. So this is what we say. Everybody says it across the board every year on Pesach night. Which some people might not notice that this verse that we're quoting as the reasoning for Hillel's ritual of baking that special sandwich of the matzah with the moreh with the Pesach, the reason he did it because the Torah says that you have to eat it. The Korban Pesach has to be eaten together with matzah and moreh. But there are two verses in the Torah which talks about eating the Pesach with matzah and moreh. One is by the original time, the first time that we were told to eat Korban Pesach, which, as we said before, that was actually in Egypt. And if you look there, the Torah uses a little different type of wording. It's not all, but a little different of a verse than the verse that we are quoting as the source for Hillel's tradition. The verse that the Torah says in Parshas Bo regarding eating the Korban Pesach, it says in the Torah, "Ve'achlu et habasar," they should eat the flesh, "Balayla hazeh," on the night of the Korban Pesach, they should eat it tzli eish, they should be roasted over fire, right? Umatzot al merorim yochlu, together with matzah and bitter herbs. Matzot al merorim. The verse that we are using as a support for Hillel's reason, which it reads al matzot merorim yochlu, is actually a verse that the Torah writes regarding the second Pesach. This is written in the second Pesach. When it comes to the second Pesach, you should make it al matzot merorim yochlu. It's a different verse than the verse which is written regarding the original Pesach done every year on the first. So all the commentaries who are carefully reading the Agada are trying to understand ma korepo, what is going on. Why is we are one end mentioning and discussing a tradition performed by Hillel on the first temple, with a source of a verse which is discussing the second Pesach. What's going on? It looks like there's a mix, there's something got confused in the message. And then there's a story that there was once somebody by the great Rebbe of Belz, and the Belzer Rebbe said that this verse and this statement of Korech is really has to be broken up into two parts. And this is the way we read it. Kein also Hillel, so did Hillel do. Bizman shebeis hamikdash hayokayom, at the time when the temple stood, or Yoichel used to eat Pesach, Matzu, Moror, used to eat the Pesach together with Matzah and Moror together. That's it. This is the end of the discussion what Hillel did. Later, when it says lekayem masheneemar, to fulfill what it's written, al matzot umerorim yochlu, quoting the verse of Pesach Sheni, here says the old Belzer Rebbe is actually a prayer. What is our prayer? This is what Hillel did in the Beis Hamikdash. And I'm begging by you, Ribbono Shel Olam, Master of the world, since we are sitting at the Seder still here, not in the temple, help us lekayem, help us to fulfill what is written where? Which is written regarding the second Pesach, al matzot umerorim yochlu, that we should eat the Pesach together with matzah and moreh. And that's why the verse of the second Pesach is brought here, and not the verse which describes the original, the first Pesach. This is what the Belzer Rebbe said. So clearly what we see here is a very important conclusion based on this discussion, that God willing, in the next couple days, if the temple is going to be built, and I'm sure it's not going to be easy, there is going to be political issues, not only Israel, in the Arab world, in America. The Jews are going to fight. You think Mashiach comes and suddenly it's all going to be fine? Believe me, it's going to be a process. But at the same time, what is going to happen is that if Mashiach comes in the temple, the Rambam says the first thing that Mashiach comes is going to build the temple. How quick and how am I going to do it to be ready by Friday? If Mashiach can come, it's going to be ready by Friday too, believe me. So if the temple comes, at least we know that we are going to do a second Pesach. We're going to have a Seder with matzah, with a Korban Pesach, with 4 cups. We're not going to sing L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim because this is going to be already there. And that's how we're going to celebrate this coming Friday. Bezrat Hashem. Besides that, it's important to know that even if, God forbid, Mashiach is not going to come this week, so there is a custom, a very beautiful custom, to eat matzah on Friday to commemorate the fact that it's the second Pesach. Matter of fact, in our prayers, we don't say tachnun, we don't say the extra confessional prayers, which is not said on happy days, because after all, this is considered some type of a holiday, even a small holiday. And may Hashem help that we should merit to celebrate this coming Friday, Pesach Sheni, Tafshin Pei, 5780, 2020, with the coming of Mashiach and our Pesach, the way it's supposed to be. As the Rambam says, that anybody who now is giving a chance and he never got a chance in the first Pesach, he is able to do the second Pesach, Bezrat Hashem.
Amen.
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 How do you like it? Are we ready for a second Pesach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Bring it on.
Bring it on. Does anybody have any questions that you want to ask on this topic before?
I'm good.
Does anybody have any questions on this topic? Is it all clear? Do you have any?
That's Crystal.
What?
Very clear, Rabbi. You were very clear.
Very clear. Okay. What do you say, Limor? Limor, I see you want to say something. Say it. Come on.
No, I don't. Thank you. It was beautiful lecture. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Bezrat Hashem. Anybody else? Karen, you want to say something?
I actually
Yeah.
do have a question.
Yeah.
When you say next year in Jerusalem, does it mean we're going to live in Jerusalem or we can be here dreaming on Jerusalem? What does that word really means? Are we all going to just go? Or we can leave all over the world and just
Let's
find...
put it this way.
We'll see
Well, you have
soon.
to remember, the idea of Mashiach means that it's going to be the best experience for everyone. So either way, whether we're going to go there or not go there, it's going to be good. So you have to take it always in consideration when you think and you dream about Mashiach. So some people get nervous. Oi, am I going to give up my apartment in Nechvezvu, in Bellevue, in Kirkland, and have to go to Jerusalem? Right? The answer is, or somebody says, oi, that means we are going to stay in Bellevue? I thought we're actually going to move. You know, I'm planning to go back to my mother. The answer is, this is what you have to keep in mind. Mashiach, from our biblical, halachic, midrashic, Hasidic, Kabbalistic, any type of perspective, if it's an authentic perspective of true Judaism, Mashiach means the best for you and for us. So whatever is going to be, is it going to be good? If it means that you stay in Bellevue, you're going to feel meaning and you're going to be very happy to stay in Bellevue. If it's going to mean to actually move in Yerushalayim, or maybe you want to move next to because you have your eye on a neighborhood not far from Yerushalayim, whatever it's meant to be, this is going to be good. That's number one.
Amen.
Number two, the temple is obviously only going to be in Yerushalayim.
Yes.
Only going to be in Yerushalayim. And what I'm going to discuss now that you asked this question, I was contemplating between different topics for next week. So next week, Bli Neder, the discussion is going to be, since we have a mitzvah called pilgrimage. We have to go visit the temple, right? Especially during the holidays, or even Pesach. Does that mean that we have to be physically in Jerusalem? We have to fly by plane, by ship, by boat. Is there a physical obligation on us to go be in Jerusalem? So that's going to be the topic next Sunday, Bli Neder. But meantime, Jerusalem is the old Mashiach concept is a reality. It means a time, an era where the world reaches completion. Jerusalem is the symbol of the completion of the world. The world is complete. There is a temple. There is a king called Mashiach. Whether or not you live there or not, don't live there, not necessarily that we're all going to be there physically, no. But there is going to be times that we're all going to be there, like holidays and so on. And how you're going to get there, I'm going to speak next week.
Oh,
So
I
many
didn't
flights.
know that. I thought everybody should be on suitcases, ready to go.
Yes.
No, don't prepare your suitcase because you don't want to be, what's it called? You might have to stay here.
Oh no.
I'm telling you again, oh no is a good response in today's reality. But if you look at it in a perspective that this is what's supposed to be the best for you, so it could be physically Jerusalem, or it could be for you the best place is going to be in Wuhan, in China. I don't know.
Not in China.
Mashiach is going to determine where's the best place, and you're going to feel it. It's going to be in your consciousness, and then you feel this is where I belong. You're not going to look anywhere else. The whole idea of looking elsewhere is an exile
mentality.
What is that? Mentality. It's an exile mindset. You know,
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm there, a different neighborhood. Maybe I should move here. Maybe I should go there. My parnasa comes from here. My children are happier there. This is all gullus. This is all gullus. This is all exile. Geula, redemption, means that wherever you are, you belong. You feel belong, rooted, strong, happy, satisfied. Where? You're gonna find out. You're gonna
It
find
does make
out.
sense because I heard something that says about Yerushalayim is Iru Shalem, where we're gonna see a whole. That will be our Yerushalayim.
So in Kabbalah and Hasidus, it says that Yerushalayim comes from two words. Yiru means ira, fear, reverence to God. Shalem. If you have a complete respect and reverence to God, you are in Yerushalayim.
Right.
So I can tell you where I want to be. I want to be where my Rebbe is going to be. Wherever the Rebbe is going to be, that's where I want to be. But maybe the Rebbe is going to tell me you belong in Bellevue. So then it's going to have, the Rebbe is going to have to be with me in Bellevue.
Right.
That's how it's going to work.
That makes sense. It
That's
does.
just, but
I have question.
Yeah.
Question. If you want to be where your Rebbe will be, how about us? We want to be where you will be. You are our Rebbe.
that first of all, I'm not your Rebbe. Okay? We have one Rebbe, and this is our Rebbe. My Rebbe is your Rebbe, and your Rebbe is my Rebbe. Second of all, like I said before, you're going to be in a good place. Even the background behind you, which I like really much, especially now, I would really love to be there. Whatever the background is, whether it be Mexico. I don't think that in Yerushalayim there is such a background, but like I said, if it means that we are going to live a good life, a happy life, and it's all going to make sense, so whatever will be good. I don't care the details. This, that, and the other is all because we look with these glasses. But once we're going to take off these glasses, we're going to put up Mashiach glasses, so then we're going to see things differently. You know, I tell my mother, I speak to my mother on the phone last week, Thursday night. So she tells me that there was a video, which I actually saw the video. Somebody is standing in Miron. In Miron, you know, next week is like Ba'omer, and Miron is always like one of the biggest celebrations in Israel, Jews come and dance. It's a real place of joy and simcha. And this guy is standing in Iran. Now the government rules is that we're not going to have these gatherings next week in Iran, obviously to preserve health. So this guy is standing there and is screaming into the cave of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, Rab Shimon, help us. We want to have you Yortzeit celebrated, Rab Shimon. So my mother tells me, you saw the video? I said, yeah, because I know that she knows that I know the person who was screaming in there. So my mother tells me, you saw it? I say, yes. And I said to my mother, this guy doesn't get it. He's calling to Rav Shimon to have the opportunity to celebrate his Yortzeit, to help him celebrate the Yortzeit. If you're really asking, ask that Mashiach should come, and we shouldn't have to have a Yortzeit on Lag BaOmer. Rav Shimon is going to be with us. So my mother tells me, you don't get it. For this guy, this party of celebration is Mashiach. In other words, Mashiach is like an experience. In his mind, this is Mashiach. We dance, and there's over a few 100,000 just together, and we celebrate. This is his Mashiach's reality.
But there isn't a special mitzvah to live on the land of Israel, or it's not something that will be considered at that time?
You will see. Find out. Come back next week.
Now I have to come back, right?
Where are you now? Are you in a park somewhere? No, where are you?
No, that's Jerusalem. Just this is Jerusalem.
Oh, the back.
Trying to.
Everybody put
The
the
back
back
is
on.
Jerusalem.
David, what do you say? You're quiet tonight.
I'm always quiet.
Did you have a nice Shabbos rest?
Beautiful rest.
What do you think? Mashiach comes. We're going to Jerusalem or we're staying in Redmond?
Bellevue.
You're moving to Bellevue? I'll say, this is for him, Mashiach. To move from Redmond to Bellevue, this is his Mashiach. I guess everybody has his Mashiach. I know. Everybody with his Mashiach. We can't move away from this idea. The idea is that Mashiach is meant to be happy days. Mashiach means times that we feel fulfilled, we feel satisfied, we feel rooted wherever we are. So to calculate exactly where am I going to invest in my next real estate investment, because this might be the place that I want to be the first, this is not really the way to look at it. Yeah. Wherever you are now, you have to make it a place that when Mashiach comes, he should feel comfortable there, you should feel comfortable there, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm sure it's going to be good.
Maybe it's Mexico, Arnold.
Yeah, welcome.
And David, I'm not sure if Arnold sees you in Mexico when he is there, he's going to believe Mashiach is there.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
is Ruchi there with you?
Yeah.
When we finish, I'd just like to have a quick word with Ruchi.
Okay. Mr. Farkas, Arnold is calling you to justice.
Yeah, hi Arnold.
Hi, Ruchi. Ruchi, thank you so much for making that video of Friday night. I forwarded it to family and friends in London and Israel and locally.
Oh my goodness, you did. I did the same thing, Dad. Oh, they probably got
Good.
Going Facebook.
it. Was
Live.
wonderful. It
Great.
really
It was
was.
great.
It really
Yeah,
was
So
wonderful.
happy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Everybody can see how well you're doing. Very nice. How's everybody? Good? Karen, you're having a good day?
Yes, it's just a busy day.
A busy day more.
And to the Zoom, shopping, taking stuff to that. Yeah.
Like every day. Well, no, the kids don't have to look at it. That's the only thing.
Can't hear well. It seems to be noise.
I think it's the water of Mexico, the waves.
Yeah, it sounds like something going on with Lou Burris. Yeah.
I think it's the waves. Okay, my
No,
friends.
there is
I'll
no.
see you guys later. Laila Tov.
Laila
We'll
Tov.
all be together on Friday in the temple offering the second Pesach. Bezrat Hashem.
Beseder.
Amen.
I bring the matzah, you bring the meat.
Okay, sounds good. On me.
All the best.
Bezrat
Take
Hashem.
care, everybody. It's good to see you.
Good to see
Baruch
you.
Hashem, good to see everybody.